Hey guys, before we get started on today's video, I just want to say that the Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30 nomination is ending this Friday. And if any of you guys are liking this stuff that I put out and you're finding it helpful and you feel inclined to nominate me, you can do so by going to www.dragillustrated.com and you can go to the 30 Under 30 link and send in a nomination in my name. I greatly appreciate it. Now, on with the video. What's up YouTube? Welcome back. Today we are at Thornhill Dragway for King of the Hill with my dad's car there behind us. Today I've got my work cut out for me a little bit because we only get one time run. So I really only have one chance to change anything and I kind of have to make it count if he's going to have any success at all trying to race this thing tonight. So like I said in the last video, I'm gonna make a real small change. I'm just gonna drop the air pressure down to 11, from 12 to 11, and I tighten the front shock extension one click, and then we're gonna see what that does. The air is not great today, but it's also not terrible. So assuming that this works, we have decent traction, I believe the car will go a 22 to a 23 off the trailer. And then if it spins, we're screwed because we're not gonna have another time run to try anything. So we will see how it goes, and we'll catch back up with you after this first time run. Since I only get one shot at this today, I figured I'd come up here and see what the track looked like. They had told me that they had scraped it before the last no prep race, which it appears that they definitely did, but I was coming up here to see if they've put anything back down. Pretty dang bare right there, so I think I'm gonna have him run at the end of the session, so that way we have the best chance possible going down a real not radial prep surface. Wish me luck. So there were several issues with that first run there, starting with where the water box location is. My dad has not been to Thornhill in about 2 years, and they recently had redone all of the starting line. They repaved, reconcreted all the way to the 330. And in doing so, they moved the water box way forward. That thing used to be like 3 car lengths back behind. So it kind of honestly caught us both off guard. I didn't really pay attention to the location of the water box when I went up there and looked at the track because I was just so focused on the surface. But so because of that, it was so far forward that normally he couldn't do his normal burnout procedure, which would be to start getting the tires smoking and then kind of drive it out. Because if he did that, he would be through the starting line, and you don't really want to drive a radial across the starting line because it'll tear the rubber that's there up with it. So so the burnout was very subpar just because honestly we were both caught off guard with that. And I think that hindered a lot of the run there, or at least according to my notes, that's what I was thinking at the time. So because he kind of, went a little bit too far, wasn't anticipating how short it was. He backed up, and he's not used to backing up like that, so the car was pointed a little bit left. It's not common practice in the bracket racing world to like go out there and put somebody in their marks. It's just not something that you normally have to do. So he pointed it a little bit left on accident, which is why you've seen it go left in the video. Surprisingly, even with that spin that it had in it, it still went 134.9 60 foot, and it went 624 with an O, which I was kind of shocked about. But pretty much for the next pass, I want to get a better burnout on the tire before I go changing anything. It sucks that our next pass is first round of eliminations and we don't have another time run, but it is what it is. I felt like the left lane was worse than the right lane as far as the scraping goes. I felt like it was scraped better in the left, so I wanted to start going down the left because I felt like picked the worser lane on our free time run. So just to keep everything consistent and not change anything, we're gonna go back to the left lane for first round and not change anything and just do a better burnout. So that was definitely a more appropriate burnout with a better staging procedure. He was lined up straight, everything looked good from the water box to the tree. But it really didn't net in any change, at least not anything in any positive direction. It went a 134.8 60 foot, so it barely picked up. I'm not even considering that picking up. I'm considering that the same 60 foot as the 134.9 it went to pass before. Ran almost the exact same number to the 330, and then he was out of it way early because the guy in the right lane was having trouble, couldn't get there, so he was so far out on him, he just rolled out of the throttle and coasted through. So it went like a 640 or something. It was really slow, but got the win. So that gives us the opportunity to move on to the next round and continue working on this thing. So after that, not changed, not making any improvement. I'm looking at the video, and at the time I'm feeling like the front end is not coming up fast enough. The crank isn't making it even to the pinion, much less over the pinion, before it loses the tire. So I like to make one change at a time. So all I'm changing on for this next pass is I'm just loosening the front end back up to full loose. So I'm just making one click adjustment, not a major change, but hopefully a change in the right direction until we can, figure out a better solution. There's only so much that you can do at the track when you're, we're not way off with it, but we're off enough. So loosening the extension is what I do for the next run, and then we keep the same deal, left lane, everything else stays the same, and we'll see how that pans out. So that also didn't give us any positive change. I feel like the track is starting to go away. This is a busy weekend, so there's a lot of cars going down, which is helpful, but that doesn't give them really any time to do any sort of track prep in between rounds. So you're basically just relying on whatever surface the guy before you gave you. So it actually slowed down to the 60 foot there. It went 137, and then it went a 623 with a 3. Somehow he got the win again. We're getting lucky on this deal, and that gives us the opportunity to try something else for the next pass. We need more available traction, and that's hard to do when you're in that situation as the role of a chassis tuner, I guess you could call it, because there's only so many tools in that toolbox that you can use before you're just out of luck. It's hard to see in that video there, but the car was kind of all over the place. He told me when he got back from the run that he felt stupid for staying in it because it was all over the racetrack. In person, you could kind of see the taillights dancing left to right the whole run. And I feel like that was because the car was just so upset. It was trying to raise the front end up. It was spinning the tires so easily and the front end was falling off. We had the front compression really tight because we're used to it doing wheelies and using the front compression to control the landing. And so the car is just set up really stiff on compression. So when it comes down, it starts to porpoise. And when it does that, it wants to bounce around. And you could actually, in person, I don't know if you could really hear it in the video, but you could hear it as he started to get out there. You could hear it kind of skirting around. The surface at this track is actually really good all the way to the 330. But after the 330, it's back to the original blacktop, and there's actually like ruts in the track. So if you're a really fast car, it might not, or it might affect you more so than if you're a slower car. But when he goes over those transitions, it got a lot worse. So basically he's telling me that, hey, we got to figure something out on that, or I'm not even going to run this car anymore. So I decided to loosen the front compression 2 clicks, and I also loosened the rear compression 2 clicks. He had told me in the past before that it felt like the front was fighting the rear a little bit on compression. So I just loosened both of those up 2 clicks, and then went back to running 11 pounds of air in the tire because I just feel like we need more available traction because the prep isn't there. So drop in the air pressure just a little bit to try to give it a little bit more traction sitting on the starting line. So kind of getting to the point where we're beating head against the wall here. Those changes had absolutely no positive effect. It slowed down to the 330, went a 138.5, and then it went a 625.3 out the back. And that was running it all out. He keeps getting really lucky, and we keep winning and going rounds, which is really good because it's giving us the opportunity to work on the car a little bit. Usually that you don't have this kind of luck, especially on a night like this. A lot of these guys take King of the Hill really serious. It's kind of what everybody wants to win of the year is King of the Hill. So we're now down to the point where we're down to 16 cars. And at this point, there's no ducks left. Well, there is, we're the duck. But aside from us, there's no ducks left in this deal. And we feel like as far off as we are with this thing, that our chances of winning this next round are very slim. So as a Hail Mary, we heard some things that some guys were complaining about the left lane, some guys that race at the track all the time. They were saying that, you know, they all went out that round that we did, that the left lane was bad, whatever. I mean, I seen cars go down both lanes, and I seen faster cars go down both lanes. So I'm never the kind of guy that says, oh, the lanes are bad. But we kind of had a feeling this would be our last run. So out of kind of a Hail Mary, we decided to, hey, let's try the right lane. And then I went and loosened the rear extension up on the shocks 2 clicks to try to give it more. You know, it doesn't necessarily need more traction right on the hit, but it needs more traction as the tire makes about a half a turn because that's where it's starting to lose it. So loosening the rear extension is going to allow it to drive the tire down a little bit harder. So that's our plan moving into fourth round, 5th pass of the night. So because we changed lanes, we were a lot sooner in the run order. We were the 4th or 5th pair back, and they had now had enough cars eliminated to where they had some time for some track prep. So they hand sprayed the starting line 4 or 5 pairs before us. And we go up there, does a good burnout, does everything right. And surprisingly, the car stands up. It's not perfect, but it's the best that it's looked all night. It goes 132, 60 foot. It goes 392 to the 330. And then we had this thing dialed in at a 19. And because we really had no idea what to dial it in at, we were just kind of throwing darts at a dartboard because we were so far off. And he gets down through there, and the guy he was running is a faster car than him. So the slow car leaves first, and then fast car catches him. And he gets down to the other end, and he's not that next to him. In bracket racing, if the guy you're racing isn't next to you when you get down around the mile-per-hour cone, you're either on a breakout or they're way above. And this guy we were racing, Brian, he's a killer. This guy went 003 on the tree, and he ran it all out and broke out by 3 thou. So not only does he dial honest, but he's on it. And so when that guy's not there, a guy like that isn't there, you know, a good chance you're on a breakout. So he rolls out of the throttle way early, you know, thinks he kills a bunch of ET out of it, and it went a 22. I'm sorry, we dialed it into a 24 because we hadn't gone any faster than a 23 all night, so we felt like a 24 was where we needed to be. So he goes down through there, dumps it way early, knocks 8 mile an hour out of it, and still goes through at a 622 with a 6. So he breaks out by over 2 thou. So we lost that round, as we kind of figured that we were going to. But my dad did a good job driving the car. He was 005 on the tree, and he did a good job driving the other end. It's just when you're, I won't say sandbagging because we're not intentionally sandbagging. We just have no idea what we're doing. And when you're that, you know, that many numbers off, like I think that it would have gone at least an 18 or a 17 according to what it ran in the early numbers. So when you're bagging 4, 5, or 6 numbers, it's impossible to do a good job driving the other end. It's my opinion that if you're bracket racing, you want to try to dial it as close to what the car is actually going to run or one number above, because that's going to give you the best chance of being able to drive the finish line the best. So acted a little dumb in the video, again, just because I was excited to see the car, you know, work and not just go out there and spin and beat our heads against the wall. Always sucks to lose, of course, but we were happy. And then the guy that beat us, he ended up he won his class, bracket 1, and then he went to run off for the finals for the King of the Hill trophy, and he ended up runner-up. So, you know, hats off to him. He's got a really good car, and it works in both lanes. It don't care what lane it's in. So that's what we need to get to with my dad's car. We need to go down any track, anywhere, any lane, no excuses, and that thing just work every single time. So some time has passed since that happened and since I'm making this video, and I was watching the videos, and I just was thinking about how the car sets the tire happy. The tire looks good, and then it'll make a half a turn, a half a rotation, and then it'll spin the tire. When it spins the tire, the front end is up. So it's not like the front end, you know, is on the ground still, like it needs more weight transfer, and the shocks aren't topped out in the front when it spins the tire. It's losing leverage on the tire. And if you watch the wrinkle on the tire, it'll wrinkle nicely, it'll stay wrinkled for that half a turn, and then all of a sudden all the wrinkle comes completely out of the tire. It just looks like a aired up, you know, slick, and then that's when it spins, and then, you know, then it drives back off because it's a pro bracket. But so I'm looking at that thinking, okay, what needs to be changed to keep the tire set, essentially? Obviously, you know, everything that we're using as a tool: shock settings, spring rates, tire pressure, how quickly you're letting the front end come up. All that stuff is a factor into this. But we have the front end full loose, and it's still not allowing the front end to come up. Even if the front end's up, it's not affecting this tire. So that's telling me that the front end isn't our problem, that I think we have a leverage issue. So I have the pinion angle set on this car at 1.9. So that's a negative 1.9. So the pinion's like this, the drive shaft's like this. That would be okay for a brand new ladder bar car. 2 degrees of pinion angle is okay if it had really good brand new Heim joints. All the chassis brackets were all brand new, but this car is over 20 years old. Some of the Heims are 20 years old. Some of the other Heims that have been replaced are 10 years old. So everything has a lot of slop in it. The purpose of pinion angle is to get the drive shaft to 0 to take the slack out of it. But if you don't have enough pinion angle in it and you have a bunch of slack and all this stuff, it's going to go to 0, and then it's going to go up in an A shape. It's going to have positive pinion angle before it takes the slack out. And when it goes to positive pinion angle, it's going to take load, leverage, however you want to think about it, off of the tire. So what I believe to be happening is it sets the tire, the shocks are doing their job, the tire pressure is doing its job, front end's doing its job, but then pinion angle goes straight, and then it goes beyond straight, it turns into an A, and it's actually pulling the tire up off of the surface and making it lose the tire. So before we go out next weekend, I'm going to go from 1.9 pinion angle to, I'm gonna put it somewhere down around 3.5 degrees pinion angle, and then not make any other change and see how much just pinion angle will affect it. It's easy to look at that last run that we made and think that like, oh, it's pretty close. But like I said, before we went up, there was track prep put down, 4 cars before us. And I think that's a huge factor, especially on any radial. Track prep is key. I think if we ran on really good racetracks, maybe it wouldn't care about the pinion angle, but I don't believe the pinion angle to be correct anyways. And so in my mind, I can't have something that's not right. You know, it needs to be right in the car. So at least that's if that doesn't make any change, then we can say, well, at least we know that now the pinion angle is right, and you know, all the slack's out of it. We have a problem elsewhere. So that's my next plan. I'll bring you guys along for the video on that and see how we do going into the next race weekend. But overall, I won't call this one a success, but I'll call it a good learning experience. I'm learning more and more and more about this car, how to run this car, and that's just making me overall better at looking at any chassis in general and seeing what it wants. So, like always, I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate you watching, and stick around, and we will catch you on the next one.